Hey there and welcome back to today's video. So for today's AFK journey video, we're going to cover Necrodrakon, the free-to-play mid to end game transition guide for this boss itself. So there's two more coming for Yeti as well as Skyclops, so I'll showcase those. But for Necrodrakon, I think this boss will be probably the more special boss because you can't actually use like your orthodox PvE content pushing team to clear this boss, because most of those units, they're relatively immobile, so they're not good for Necrodrakon due to the last skill. And if you guys are at where I am right now at Hell stage, or at least like when the skill of this boss is at level 4, at least the amount of debuff that this boss applies to your team is, I'll say, disruptive enough to lower your damage effectively. So that's where you actually have to start using those units with the displacement abilities, namely Merrily, which is one of the strongest Dream Realm unit, right? Corinne, one of the strongest as well in terms of damage output if you do have them built up. But in today's video, I'm going to showcase to you guys my team that I use and let you guys have a benchmark for this boss based on what you guys have. Okay, so I'll showcase two different teams in terms of this boss, and I'll explain the rationale behind why you use a certain unit and why you position the units in a certain way. So first up, I will use Torrent and OD because they are my strongest units. So OD being one of the strongest single target DPS is gonna jam in a lot of damage on the boss, and then Torrent with the ability to protect one ally with the link is gonna keep OD alive for longer so that his normal attack can jam in more damage. So you will also want to link OD to Torrent because OD in general is more frail compared to Merrily, so OD takes more damage, and the link allows Torrent to take more damage, which allows his ultimate to do more damage as well. So this is one mini caveat that you guys want to know. So the next two units that I use are actually Rainer and Merrily. So I swapped Merrily with the boss because Rainer, even though you don't have him at Legendary Plus, even if you don't have him at the Mythic Plus for the EX weapon, you still have the second skill, which is a massive heal on the units that you're trying to send in. So Rainer not only provides the factional bonus because he's a Hypogene unit, right? He also provides a very decent heal on the carry that you're trying to protect. So you can swap between OD and Merrily depending on your personal take, but I prefer Merrily because Merrily doesn't get the debuff from the boss itself. So the boss have this debuff over here, as you guys can see, right? So this debuff actually causes the unit to lose attack as well as lose energy gain. So Merrily is better in the long run of things. So if she can survive longer, I'll try to keep her for a life longer. And if you're Merrily with her EX weapon unlocked, she will definitely do way more damage than OD anyway. So protecting her with Rainer is probably the wiser choice for most people. But do based on your personal take, right? If your Merrily is very low tier, right? One thing which I don't really talk about often, but people always point it out, is I have my Cecile at a very high rank, right? She's gonna survive longer, she's gonna do the more damage. So I'm just gonna say this, guys. I don't want to repeat it in the future, but if you have a unit that's just way stronger in terms of tiers compared to another unit, even if the unit sucks, you guys can just use the unit because the unit is stronger, the unit is gonna survive better, the unit is gonna do more damage, right? Obviously, like you don't have to tell me that your Supreme Plus Cecile is doing more damage. It's kind of sickening to see it because it's like, obviously, right? Like this is common sense, right? A stronger unit will survive better, will do more damage. So if it's better for you to use a certain unit just because of the unit being stronger, then just use it. Okay, so that's for the pointer that I want to point out. So the last unit that I use is Tamasia. So Tamasia is higher tier in terms of my box compared to Corinne. But if you have Corinne, I think Corinne is a better choice because Corinne does damage and also provides a shield, which increases the overall longevity for your team. But for my case, as you guys can see, my Tamasia is a little bit stronger. So putting Tamasia in is to create disturbance on the boss as well as do damage from there. So without further ado, let's start the battle, and then I'm going to explain the battle itself. So at the battle start, Merrily gets swapped in with the purple ring on her and then the red ring on the boss. So throughout the battle, you guys will realize that my Merrily's HP is always increasing. That is because of Rainer's ring effect, the dynamic balance. So one thing which OD does really well is just throwing the ultimate and then sticking damage onto the boss. So that's why Merrily is always getting killed by it, and Merrily is always healthy in this fight. And Merrily, being the unit that doesn't get debuffed by the boss, is able to jump around and then subsequently proc multiple stacks of Star Shard spell, as you guys can see. So she's healing back up once again. Very, very good heal. So if you don't have Rainer, right, you can obviously use your standard healers like Smoky, Coco, but they're just not very good in this boss. So they will die off more quickly, and their heals and buff that they can provide for your team is not as high. Okay, so over here the boss dealt a massive damage which killed off my Merrily, unfortunately. Okay, so sometimes things like this happen, right? There's a little bit of RNG where the boss's damage do crit and then it kills off your unit, but it's fine. So based on your personal box, based on how strong your units are, I'll say play around with the units. If you don't have OD, right, you have a better like Lightbringer core, then just run 3 Lightbringer plus Rainer plus Torrent, right? This gives you more stats, it gives you more attack, and then from there you do more damage. In general, right, just use, I'll say, like units which can survive for as long as possible. Don't use a unit that's way too low tier. Like even for Rainer's case, he's a legendary for me, because if Rainer is at, I'll say, like epic tier, then he's gonna melt quite easily at where the boss is at right now. So that's something which I mentioned just now, but I'm just gonna talk about it again. Use your strongest units. And then for the second round, I'm gonna showcase a team where maybe you don't have Rainer. What can you substitute? How will your team look like? So if you don't have Rainer, like I mentioned, you run Corin, right? If you feel that okay, OD is not the strongest unit because he get debuff, then what do? Then you obviously use another high mobility unit like Rowan, for example. So this is another team that I recommended for the free-to-play endgame account. So this is when you don't have Rainer. This is when you want full mobility, and Rowan provides, I'll say, the same thing that Rainer provides, which is heal, and on top of that he has energy cycling as well. But one thing that Rowan doesn't provide is that he doesn't provide the damage boost that Rainer can provide with the EX weapon. So that's something that Rainer cannot be replaced for, at least with the current pool of units. But if not, if you don't have Rainer, then Rowan is also a decent replacement. And then we have Corin with shields, and then we have Tamasia, so I don't need to explain too much. So this is the other way you can do it. So in this case, my Rowan is slightly lower tier, but it doesn't really matter as long as your Rowan can survive, because his skill doesn't really do a lot of damage, and his skill doesn't really scale with stats. So it's okay if your Rowan is at a lower tier, so you can definitely use him as a support. So as you guys can see, this unit will actually move forward, so he will not get the debuff, and at the same time he will also charge up the energy bar of your other units, so allow you to do more Starshot spell damage from there. Okay, but the one thing about Rowan is that this unit is quite frail, and he likes to walk all the way in front and then clog up himself with all the other units, which makes it such that he always takes a lot of damage. So that's one thing which I don't like about Rowan, at least in auto mode, because there's no way you can control where he stands. So if you're able to control where Rowan goes, right, you can definitely position this unit in a better position. However, as you guys can see, because my unit's tier for this boss battle is not as high as the previous one, my overall damage is a lot lower. So this is because of the lack of OD doing damage in this team, because OD was one of the biggest damage dealer for this run itself. So as you guys can see over here, so in this case Merrily did more damage. That's because Rowan actually cycled more, and then allow her to use her ultimate to jam in a little more damage. And then Corin is there to protect the team, right, with his shields, but at the same time, because he doesn't offer much utility before the EX weapon. I mean, he doesn't offer much damage before the EX weapon, so he's not dealing as much damage. So this unit is another unit that requires EX weapon to scale up in terms of damage output, in case you guys are wondering why he's still so weak, like why people recommend him but why he doesn't do as much damage, because he needs the EX weapon for damage. Then for Tamasia's case, damage range is roughly the same, and then Torrent's case roughly the same. So there's a slight increase in terms of these two units damage output, because Rowan's ultimate allow this unit to use their ultimates, I'll say like 2 more times, I think 2 or 3 more times, based on how long the Rowan survived. So that's one strong thing about Rowan. But if you have Rainer, I'll say always replace Rainer with Rowan, right? If not, if you have a very powerful tank like Tamasia that can stand on the front line, you might not even need to use Torrent, right? You just use the meta team that I recommended in the Necrodrakon Zeeebo's guide series. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, right? Just a short update for the mid to late game free to play players. Hopefully this is helpful as usual. Do remember to like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys again in my next AFK journey video. Bye guys.